Welcome to Renaissance Minis. Let's get started. Now that I have all the wallpaper on, I'm going to trim out the inside of the windows before putting on the acrylic and the outside window frames. And to do this, I'm going to be using cardstock. I like to cut these interior pieces, these edging pieces from the cardstock. I like to pre-cut them before I glue them in, and it's really helpful to use a smaller glue gun with a point tip so that you can precisionally place the glue so it doesn't ooze out on the sides of the frame. I attach the acrylic to the outside rather than the inside. That way it gives an appearance that there's like an inside windowsill, and then putting the trim over it to cover it, but you can do it any way that you feel works best for you. You can also build your windows separate from the structure and then glue them into the cutouts. Another option you can also do is you can also buy windows, dollhouse windows, and put them in, and that's easier. Right here I'm cutting the acrylic. I'm cutting it just shy of the edges. That way, when I put this piece in, if I have to trim something off the edges, I'm going to have room to do that, and I won't have to cut through the acrylic and the foam board at the same time. So I'm just going to trim a little bit off here on the sides and giving some allowance here on the edge. That way I can make adjustments when I place it into the front. Because you never know, like my measurements are off sometimes, and that way I'm just giving myself a little bit of an allowance if I need to go in and make a correction of some type. Now, if you would like to, you can put windows on the top as well and follow the same procedure. For this shop, I'm not going to put windows on the top. So I'm going to attach these sides first and work my way inward. That way, if I have to make any adjustments to the center door, I am just doing it to one piece and not to all the pieces. And I find it easier to glue it in this way. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add some glue here, and I'm just going to wait a few seconds and let the glue set up just a little bit so that it's kind of semi-tacky. That way it won't ooze out the sides. If you put too much glue on, you'll find that it oozes out the sides and it becomes very messy. And of course, you can always use tacky glue versus hot glue if you prefer. I like hot glue because it's an instant bond, but there's also, you know, all of the things that go with using a hot glue gun, like the glue strings are annoying, and you know, you have seconds to apply it and then it's done. So you don't have room to move or adjust things before it sets up like you do with tacky glue. All right, so now I have the two sides on, and I'm just going to go ahead and repeat the same process with these two smaller pieces. One here and one on the other side, and then go for the center. And I do end up making some adjustments to the center piece, and when I do that, I take a little bit off each side. Now there's going to be some pretty huge crevices here on the front side of the building. That can't be avoided. but I'm going to cover that up with 1/8 inch square dowels. Later on, you'll see that. I pre-paint them and then I glue them into those areas where the two pieces come together. It gives it a little bit of detail and it covers up the seam. Now I'm going to move on to putting glue. I'm running a very thick bead of hot glue down this center spaced area. And that's going to give it a little bit more strength. And of course, as it's going to be covered up, I'm not too worried about if it oozes out here on the seam. And I'm just gently holding it down at the bottom and pressing it and keeping it together until the hot glue completely sets up. And now I'm on to the centerpiece. I'm popping out the door here, and I'm choosing not to put hinges on my door. You can definitely put hinges on. I'm going to trim out this inside piece here with some black cardstock as always. And then I added some chipboard here around the sides, and then I'm going to go ahead and paint that. And then I'm going to put the acrylic in and finish it up. But I like to keep it so that I could just pop it out. It's held in by tension. And I can just pop this out and reach my hand in there if I need to adjust something. But you won't need to have a working door because you can have access from the top and from the back of this room box. You can put pins up inside the foam board to make it a working door, but it may not work too well unless you put some popsicle stick wood supports in there for the pins to go through. So foam board is, as you know, it's kind of delicate, so the door would just rip out inevitably. Another option you have is to also buy a pre-made dollhouse door in 1/24 or 1/12 scale. You can get those online. You can get them on Etsy. You can get them at Michael's Crafts, and then you just basically put them in to your cutout. That is another way to have a much better look. And then they're already pre-hinged and you don't have to worry about anything. But I like my doors to be see-through on these shops because I love to turn the lights on at night when I'm in my office and look into these little room boxes. So I like to have as much viewing space as I can. So I'm going to put the acrylic on after I paint. I'm going to paint it first. Just going to use the Apple Barrel Black in Satin, I believe, and just get the edges painted. So now I'm on to placing this in, and I notice right off the bat it's not going in. So I will need to take a little bit off each side. I don't want to take it off just one side because then I will throw off the measurement of the door being in the exact center. So now I'm just looking to see how much I have to take off, and here I'm just going to take just a little bit off. It's better to take off a little bit at a time rather than too much all at once. I have had to remake entire pieces before when taking off too much. So if you do have to do this part, I would just take a little bit off and then a little bit more and see if it fits. And now this changes the entire measurement of this door. I believe it was 3.5. Now it's like 3 1/8 inches. It's not quite as wide as it was, but it fits so much better. I'm just double checking everything before I start gluing it. It's a pretty tight fit. In fact, I was afraid it would start ripping off the fascia of the front of the, because everything is pretty delicate here. The chipboard that I put on top, it kind of warps when you paint it, and so you need a lot of hot glue to get it to lay down. It kind of bubbles a little bit. There would be more ways to do this if you prefer. I mean, you can certainly make this out of wood, and you can certainly use a more durable material for this front part. Like you can cover this in, instead of doing it in chipboard, you could trim out the windows with popsicle sticks or coffee stir sticks. And that, I think that would be a lot more stronger, and you're not going to get the curling when you paint it. See, I'm gluing the edges down here because they're literally curling. So it's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but it works, and I like the overall look when I'm done with it. So, of course, my channel's not about doing it perfectly. It's just about me using my imagination and my creativity to design things that I have ideas for. So now I'm going to take this paper, the same paper I used here, and I'm going to make trim pieces to cover up the seams. So if you do take on a project like this, I would buy several sheets of cardstock or scrapbook paper and give yourself a few extra pieces to do the kind of detail work. I have run out of the paper before. That was frustrating because I was like, I have to use something else now. So I would suggest buying a little bit more than you think you need, just in case you mess up on something, or you have to redo something, or you just need to do some trim pieces like this. So now I've cut the piece and I'm folding this cardstock in half, and that's going to give me a nice smooth little edge here. And then I glue it on. And I would recommend gluing this on with tacky glue and not hot glue. I find out later that the hot glue kind of dried really fast, and it kind of left it a little bit lumpy. And you also have to work super fast when you use hot glue. Whereas when you use tacky glue, you can put it on, you still have some adjustment time, and you don't have to work so fast with it. It's just easier, I think. And you can adjust it and it lays flatter. Okay, so now that I'm all done, this is what the inside looks like. And definitely didn't like the lumpy glue here in this seam. So tacky glue would have been a better thing to use, but hindsight 2020. I'm going to move on to the next part. Now I have these 1/8 inch square dowels, which you can get at Michael's Crafts, and I'm going to pre-paint these, and then I'm going to glue them on. You can even glue them here on the edge for some extra detail if you'd like. I did that on one of the store's fronts, and I like that look as well. And so now I'm going to finish the door here and glue the acrylic on. It's really helpful to have a smaller glue gun with the very pointed tip on it so that you could do an exact bead of glue, so you're not over gluing and then it's not squishing out into the sides and getting all over your acrylic. It can be super frustrating when that happens. I always like to double check too, to make sure I have it in the right position so I don't glue the acrylic to the wrong side. All right, so I made the back wall and I covered it in the paper, the wallpaper that I chose for it, scrapbook paper. And I like to cut that out afterward by placing the whole thing on a piece of foam board and then cutting it to size. And then here I put duct tape for the hinge. This is 5 3/4 inch wide. It has a 1.5 inch angle here and here, and the top measurement here is 3 1/4 inches. Now I'm going to cut this piece out of foam board. I like to keep templates, like now that I have the shop measurements all done, I like to keep templates for everything. That way if I decide to remake this shop again, which I do and you'll see me do from the first one, the Cafe Renaissance, then I keep the templates and then I can just use the templates over and over and over again to recreate the same shop. The templates are best made out of the foam board, but you can definitely, I use the chipboard sometimes too. And this piece is going to sit right above the door, right here, and it's going to give it a surface to adhere that separation piece to that you'll see me put on later. You can also add an awning to these little shops, which I was thinking about. I might do that on another video in the future. I'm not quite sure yet. And these are just detail pieces. These are pieces of foam board that are covered with chipboard, which I'll paint with the Craft Smart Burnt Umber to make them look like wood. And now what I'm going to do is I am going to cut out some more pieces here out of the foam board. And this piece is going to be the separation piece just above the shop. It's going to be a detail piece that will come forward a little bit. So I'm using 2 pieces of foam board here. I think one is about an inch wide, an inch high. And then I'm using another piece, which is like a 1/4 inch. measuring it to the width of the shop. And now I'm placing chipboard on it because I'll be painting this with the Craft Smart Burnt Umber in order to make it look like wood like I do with most of my projects.